Lord, I pray that this Christmas, as fun as it is to exchange presents and to hang out and all these things that we're going to do, and as fun as Christmas is, getting together, or whatever Christmas is for us, for some maybe it's more pain and sorrow than anything else. Maybe it's loneliness. Whatever it is, Lord, I pray that Christmas this year will work into our hearts and in our lives as a real thing. It's hard to get out of the funk we're in sometimes. But Lord, please present this reality to our hearts. Illuminate our hearts to the reality of your worth, the reality of your kingdom, even as it is here. Give this to us, Lord, for Christmas. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, we all exist in a reality, guys, that each one of you are prone to just plod along in, right? The reality that I'm talking about might not be the kind of reality that you're thinking about. One of our youth group's favorite verses, Tyler made the reference earlier, we walk by faith and not by sight. We walk by faith and not by sight. What does that mean? We walk by faith and not by sight. What are the implications of this statement? Walk by faith, not by sight. I mean, like we're walking with our eyes closed, or are we being guided? Walk by faith, not by sight. What is it implying? Is it saying that other senses are being utilized? Think about it. Another way of saying this is this. As we look to the things that are unseen, for the things that are seen are transient, meaning they'll go away. The things we see will go away. But the things that are unseen are eternal. We walk by faith and not by sight. We look to eternal things that are unseen. Get the paradox? We look to eternal things that are unseen. Weird. Now, you guys are all plodding along in a reality, and almost all of what you're experiencing as far as you're concerned is only based on things that you can see, touch, smell, hear, and say. You know, you're interacting with the physical world as if that's all there is, and that's all that'll ever be. But do you think that just because the physical world exists within reality, that's all there is to reality? Can't you hear the angel voices? Can you hear the angel voices? Think about microorganisms for a second. What did I just say? Microorganisms. Rob's lost it. What do microorganisms have to do with anything? Yuck. Well, not much, right? They don't have much to do with anything, right? Kind of. Now, I want you to think about the world from the point of view, for just a second, if it's possible, of a microorganism. Think about being a microorganism. Can you do that? Just imagine with me. The pictures will help you, unfortunately. So you're a microorganism, and you have this microscopic bubble of goop that you live inside of, and you eat it. Then when it's gone, you roll along and slide along until you find yourself another one. Then you slurp your way into that pile of goo and eat it too, and that's your life. Okay? Like microorganisms, there's stuff that we do here in the physical world, stuff that we do that ensures our survival, but mainly consumes our entire agenda. We move from one priority to another, and then we die. For as long as we live, we never really take any interest in anything other than this goo ball that we instinctually set out to consume. Right? This thing called life. Now, microorganisms, as disgusting as they are when you see them up close, they don't seem very significant, do they? Now, I'm not asking about their significance based on some super nerdy scientific thing where good bacteria fights bad bacteria like in some epic Marvel comic superhero battle. Now, I realize that our world wouldn't be here if it weren't for microorganisms. What I'm talking about here is the individual existences and the individual experiences of microorganisms as we're aware of them. Right? Individual microorganisms. They're insignificant. Insignificant. Do they matter? Scientifically, they do, yeah. We wouldn't be alive without them. Whatever. Do they matter? What are their names? Amy? Tim? Do you know them? Do you call them by name? See, they don't matter. They're insignificant, but here's my point. Microorganisms have done amazing things. They go amazing places on this planet. They do stuff that nothing else can do. Our world wouldn't exist without them, and they don't even know it. Microorganisms don't even know it. They're not hanging out in microscopic White Houses or in microscopic university hospitals or in microscopic corporate think tanks, figuring out how to unite with one another to provide the building blocks of life, how to establish a food chain, or even contaminate living things with diseases like some criminal villain mastermind. They're not doing that. And get outsmarted and outfought by some microscopic bacterial avenger force with cool names like Captain American Bacteria or something like that. Microorganisms, they have no idea that they could be riding on top of a protein, fighting off an infection to save the life of a cell that contributes to the function of an organ, that works to coordinate necessary and life-giving resources for the body of somebody like the President of the United States, who's on board Air Force One, making a phone call to another world leader, furthering diplomatic relations that will prevent thousands of people from dying by disease, starvation, and war. You don't look at somebody who's prominent and significant. You don't say, look at that collective of microorganisms. Look at that. You don't say, man, that guy must have some pretty awesome microorganisms. We don't say that. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Neither do the microorganisms. But microorganisms are a part of everything I just said, simply by existing and carrying out their created purposes. They're there. Microorganisms have played a role in every significant thing any life form in the history of this world has ever done. As far as each and every microorganism is concerned, all they're doing is living in a goo ball and eating it. That's all they're thinking about. They're consumed with their desire to eat the goo ball that they live in. They're not tuned into the reality that's going on outside of their immediate, albeit necessary, interests. They neither know nor care about the grand scheme of everything that's going on around them. They neither know nor care what part they play in matters outside their immediate interests, no matter how significant the event is that they get to be a part of. They don't know and they don't care. Here's the kicker. Their disinterest is not due to the matters outside of them being insignificant. They're disinterested as if whatever's going on out there or whatever's going on up there was uninteresting because it's insignificant. When in reality, the brainless and stupid microorganism is disinterested in the greater scheme of things because of its insignificance. Reality isn't insignificant. The microorganism is. Even reality that pertains to its own existence, it's disinterested because of how utterly significant it is on an individual level. As significant as microorganisms are to us as a whole, there's no such thing as a single solitary microorganism being especially significant at all. There's trillions of them. If one was gone, a billion would replace it, okay? It's utterly insignificant. All it knows about is goo. All it cares about is goo. It's not because the microorganism, or the goo is that great. It's because they're so blind to reality that they can't see anything but goo. They can't perceive anything other than their own appetite for it. You and I are no different. You're like a microorganism, utterly insignificant in the grand scheme. That's hard to hear sometimes. See, but you're here. You're simply taking the place of one bug that died before, and when you die, you'll leave the place to another. This comes out of the Bible. Listen to this. Psalm 103, 15 and 16 says, "As for man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field, for the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place knows it no more." In Isaiah 40, 15 through 17, "Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are counted as the dust on scales. Behold, he takes up the coastlands like fine dust." Later on he says, "All the nations are counted as nothing before him. They are counted by him as less than nothing and emptiness." All of humanity, all humans throughout all history, a mass in God's mind is so significant that we all combined amount to a drop in a bucket. Such a big deal that the human race, we amount to dust on scales. Now, when they take your weight at the clinic, when they weigh you, when they weigh a package at the post office, or when they weigh livestock at the auction, how do they calculate in how much the dust on the scale weighs? How much do they, you've got an 1,100-pound cow here, but I'm going to have to subtract some because there was dust on the scale, right? How do they adjust their mechanisms for this, something like that? They don't. The dust doesn't matter. The dust doesn't matter. So you think you're all that? Rob, you think you're all that? Do you think anyone's all that? We're not. You're not. You're not all that. We're like the grass or flower of the field that's here one season, then it's gone, never to come back. Doesn't matter. Satan, on the other hand, Satan was created by God to be magnificent and significant. At the top, of course, is God. It's obviously God, no contest. But in the world he created, there would be beings, trillions of beings, okay? Not animals, people. Not bodies, beings. You and I are beings. We're human beings. The world that we live in is full of beings and not just human beings, okay? We're so blind. We're so blind like microorganisms in the grand scheme of beings that we're only partially aware of the other beings. And normally the beings that we're aware of are the physical beings like ourselves. We're physical beings. But the vast majority of beings throughout all time are not physical beings. They're spiritual beings. Spiritual beings vastly outnumber physical beings, and it's not even close. God created spiritual beings when he, or maybe before he created the entire world, before he created the universe, he created spiritual beings. There's more of them than there will ever be human beings, right? Among the countless number of beings in the universe throughout all time, there are only a few that were created by God to be super beings. Amongst angelic and demonic beings, some are super beings, just a few of them. One of those few super beings was Satan. Super beings are significant. They're significant because God gave them authority over physical things, authority over spiritual things. God gave them authority over spiritual beings, and God gave them authority over physical beings. By way of contrast, you don't have authority. You don't have any authority. Not really. You can't make anything happen. Not really. You can't make people do stuff. Nothing significant, at least. I mean, seems like people become really, really significant sometimes, but even if you were the most famous person in the world, even if you were the biggest deal in the world today, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be long forgotten. It's just a matter of time. But Satan really does have authority. You know, we talked about it before. He loved his own authority more than he loved God. And this majestic and glorious super being, Satan, who turned away from God, will someday be destroyed by God. It's promised in the Word. Because in God's holy place, no evil can exist there. No evil can exist in God's holy place. And someday God will make it so that nothing exists except his holy place. And though God made Satan to be a significant super being with real authority, Satan isn't even in the same league as God. Satan is no greater in relation to God than your doodle sketch is to you. The only difference is that Satan is a real person and your stick figure guy isn't. It's only a matter of time, though, before God undoes all that Satan ever did and ever was. In the meantime, what Satan happens to have authority over is you. The whole world lies in the power of the evil one. All Satan has to do is convince you to eat goo. All Satan has to do is convince you that all there is goo. In other words, if Satan can convince you to focus on you, then he's destroyed God's greatest creation on this planet, and he wins. Satan wins, for real. Did you realize before tonight that you're a part of such a thing? Did you know that? Are you aware of the reality that's going on around you right now? Are you aware of it? This has your eternal soul bound up in the fate of it. Most of you never think about it. Most of you never care about it. And even though I've told you, you might even believe me, but most of us, so self-consumed with your life, your friends, your job, your family, your farm, your church, food, or even sex. We stupidly plod along as though there's no other reality than the goo ball that we've sucked ourselves into. The whole world lies in the power of the evil one, in sin and error pining. And in case you don't buy my analogy like you're some insignificant microorganism feeding on your goo ball, no, Rob, I'm far more significant than that. Let me remind you that according to God, not only you, but the entire human race throughout all time combined is counted as less than nothing to God. God said in Jeremiah, here's what he thinks about us. He said to Jeremiah that his people have turned away from him, the fountain of living waters, and have hewed out for themselves. According to my analogy, they've chewed out for themselves a different place to get water where there is no water, instead of living at the spring. The only such place where you can eat, so to speak, and live is if you get what you need from God. The only truly significant thing we can be a part of is God. But Satan has misused his God-given authority to convince us that it is not God that's significant, not God. Instead of God, anything else. We are significant. Me. I'm significant. Because you bought into this lie, hook, line, and sinker, you're just a microorganism eating a goo ball and thinks you're the center of the universe. You realize that? Sure, God's there. We believe in him. He couldn't possibly be a big enough deal to care much about. How do I know that? I can't see him. That's why. What I determine to be important to me is only that which I can see and want, for that matter. Even though God is really there, how important can he possibly be if I can't see him? Does this sound smart, what I just said? Does it sound smart, or is this error? Long lay the world in sin and error. If this is your attitude about God, out of sight, out of mind, if that's your attitude about God, does that mean that you're seeing the reality outside yourself, the reality outside your interests? Or does it mean that you've been suckered like everyone else and now you're stuck inside a goo ball? If God is too small a thing to pay much attention to for you, does that mean you're seeing what really is? Or are you just slurping away at the goo you live in? Or are you just consuming all the stuff that exists around you? And that's us. We're concerned only about ourselves and our own self-interests. Now make no mistake, the whole world lies in the power of the evil one in sin and error pining till Jesus appeared and the soul felt its worth. If the soul felt its worth. Jesus Christ said that he came into the world to testify to the truth. That means he came to testify to reality that we can't see. We're too small. We're too insignificant. We don't understand the implications of existing in the world we live in. We're blind to every other type of being. We're blind to every other type of purpose other than those that look like we do, other than those that we instinctually immediately want. The saddest thing of all is that it's 100% our own self-focus that makes us so insignificant in the first place. Mankind wasn't created this way, not at all. It's our own utter lack of interest in the unseen reality outside ourselves that keeps us from ever becoming significant and living out the purpose for which God created man. And thus, in a world lying in such sin and error, Jesus appeared to testify to truth. He's God. He existed as the supreme spiritual being in a dimension of reality we neither know about nor care about. And like us, he came to exist in our ball of goo, at our level of existence, to our fallen level as one among the least significant beings in God's creation, so that in his appearing, the truth about God and the reality of his eternal glory might be made known to us and communicated to us as one of us. He came to testify to us who are lost in stupidity. He came to testify about reality. It wasn't just to contradict deceitful and insane and destructive ideas perpetuated by Satan, these fantasies, as if all we needed was just better information. No, God means to restore us to himself, to reestablish his image in us through his Son. God means to open our eyes and lead us out of our dungeons and into the light of his glorious reality. He didn't just holler at us and wave his arms, hey, over here. No, God knows that we're blind. God knows that we're self-consumed. And he knows that on our own, all we'll ever do is turn to the goo. So he himself came by a miracle birth. He appeared out of nowhere. And in the same way, in his mercy, he appears in our hearts out of nowhere. Christmas calls us, guys, to tune in to hidden reality. Reality that is revealed in the person of Jesus Christ. See, by appearing, Jesus Christ makes known to us the mysteries of God. He opens the eyes that are blind. He leads us into his light. He leads prisoners enchained in darkness into marvelous light. Oh, hear the angel voices. There are trillions of beings who exist to adore and worship God. That's all they do. To serve God and treasure him above any other self-consuming pursuit. They sing praise to God at all times. They always have, and they always will. This is really happening. They're very real. And they're everywhere. They're even here. Do you hear the angel voices? Listen. Do you hear angel voices? Do you hear them? No? Are you deaf? Are you blind? Can't you see? Can't you hear? You know, it doesn't mean they're not there. When we see into the reality of God, we get a sense of the massive and infinite scope of who God is and what he's done. And there we see our insignificance. Yet we're a part of all this. God didn't create everything he created, and he didn't reveal everything he revealed in order that it would mean nothing. In the grand scheme of things, I'm more like a microorganism than I am an angel. That's true. Yet by the grace of God, for me to see myself that way is actually very freeing. It's clear to me that I am not what's great about all this. I'm not even what's great about my own part in all of this. I've come to understand that it'd actually be very silly to think so. And in humility and sorrow, I've come to confess, I confess to you now, that I often forget myself and act as though it is me that I find most interesting about all this. And when I turn away from the beautiful reality of God, when I turn towards myself and all my self-focus, in that moment, I trade away the entire reality of God just to take another slurp out of the doomed, disgusting goo ball that Jesus came and died to rescue me from. Wretched man that I am, who will save me from this body of death? Who will save me out of this dungeon of endless and eternal darkness and night? The whole world lies in the power of the evil one, in sin and error pining, until the truth appeared, till reality appeared in person, in Jesus Christ, and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices. So, awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Hail the Son of Righteousness, Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, the Word of God became flesh. He lived with us. Jesus Christ testifies to reality. His presence in this world and in our hearts tells the truth about what really is, that the greatest reality in the universe is Christ, and the greatest reality in the universe for you is His appearing in you, full of grace and full of truth. Jesus Christ opens the eyes that are blind. He leads His people out of dark dungeons into marvelous light, and He gave His life as a covenant for us, for the forgiveness of our sins, so that as God raised Jesus Christ to life, never to die again, we might truly live real life in reality with Him. That's what happened at Christmas. That's what's so special about Christmas. If the Lord is calling your heart, then He appeared, and you're already there. Fall on your knees. Hear the angel voices, you who are deaf. See Him, you who are blind. O night, divine, O night, when Christ was born.